So, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, and it's a regular monthly meeting of the Regional Advisory Council. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum, and so I'll hand it over to you for the call to order and introductions.
All right, I will call to order this meeting today. And I'm going to do the introductions. And how about if I start with those online? And I see we have a couple of people online. So maybe Jen or Nemo, if you could introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Jen Nemo. I'm with Colorado Community Health Alliance. I'm the Medicaid Regional Accountable Entity for Region 3. We serve Park, Teller, El Paso counties, including Broomfield, Boulder, Gilpin, and Clear Creek, Jefferson counties.
Next is Susie Walton. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. This is Susie Walton, formerly the Director of Human Services in Park County and retired now, which is fantastic. Recommended. And also on the Senior Coalition Board in Park.
Thank you. And I have a question. Scotty Bibb was on there. Is he not no longer? Scott, excuse me.
I saw that, yeah, she was on and then she dropped off.
Yeah.
But we do have a quorum regardless, but
Okay,
I'll let
so
you know if she joins
so
in.
if she comes back on, we'll get her introduced.
Yep.
Okay, so if we can start over on this side.
Good morning, Bee Babbitt, Northern El Paso County.
Clark Becker, I represent Teller County on Teller Senior Coalition Board.
Thank you.
Don Kobleski from Falcon and Eastern Plains area.
Great, thank you, everybody. And I'm Debbie Levin Stankiewicz, and this will be my last. Oh, God, usually over there.
Gordon Rick, City of Fountain.
Excuse me, Laura Cronick, Town of Monument.
Thank you, thank you. So this will be my last beginning of chair meeting. And so now we're going to go to number 2, which is election of 2026 officers. And I think either Jody or Melissa is doing that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Melissa will pull up the election of the officers and start that process.
Good morning, RAC. Normally our membership chair would be doing this, but our membership chair was Rosemary Jaramillo, and last month was her last meeting with us. So I'm going to jump in and do this. So we have a slate of officers for 2026. Our chair that has been recommended is Laura Cronick. Our vice chair is Gordon Rick, and our membership chair is Don Kowaleski. And that is the slate that's been recommended. And so I will motion for that group to be approved. Do I have a second? Debbie?
I'll second.
Oh, just a point, a motion can only be made by a member of the council.
So if someone on the RAC would like to motion for the vote on these 3 folks. Thank you, Debbie.
Ms. Clark, I'll second.
And is there any discussion on that? If not, I will turn it back over to Debbie, who motioned to ask for a vote and approval of it.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Right. The motion is passed.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then with that, I think we can turn the meeting over to Chair Cronick to take us through the rest of the agenda. And thank you, Debbie, for being the chair. And yeah, we are now turning it over to Chair Cronick.
Thank you. Yes, first I'd like to thank Debbie for chairing, and hopefully I can fill those shoes. Okay, appointment chairs to the various committees. TRS chair is Debbie. She's not going away. We don't want her to. SRS chair is Jen. And I think that's all the appointments. Is that not? Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on, moving along to the agenda approval. Are there any corrections, additions to the agenda or changes? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Steve Abbott, motion to approve.
This is Don. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Agenda is approved. Great. Motion to accept the consent agenda items or item. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent as presented?
Ms. Clark will move to accept the consent agenda item.
Second? Is there a second?
This is Gordon, I second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Public comments. Do we have any public comments
Madam Chair,
online?
I'll ask anyone who's online to please use the raise hand function. We did not receive any advance requests for public comment online. We did receive one for in-person public comment.
Okay. And that one person in person is
Mr.
Mr.
DeBueno.
Bueno.
Well, I just want to share with this committee and also for the staff of PPACG, thank you so much for the continued support of Silver Key initiatives. If you have received the Gazette newspaper in paper form, you saw that there was big news that happened right next to what was being talked about with Greenland. Is that Silver Key apartments were approved through Planning Council. So what that means is that was front page. It's big news for us. And with that, I did want to bring forward a little bit of information and context to what this means and how you as individuals or this group would be able to support. One of the challenges is that the older adult population in our focus of 62 and above is competing with all other statewide applications for different multi-family apartments for what's called low-income housing tax credits. So the first ask that I'm bringing forward is that I did forward to Jared, and I'm sure he can get it out to the group. If you represent an organization or you individually as a member of this committee would be interested, and I don't even know if that's legal, but you all can figure that piece out. But if you'd be willing to support a letter of support with the narrative that we've given as a template, that would be helpful for us, because what we want to do is we want to bring a strong story forward to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority about the importance of this 49-unit apartment complex being moved forward in our community. It is highly dependent on the LIHTC funding. Our application, we did submit forward a letter of intent to apply in December. Our actual full application will happen in February. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we want to make sure that we keep the rents as low as possible. And to do that, the article, it said $800,000. It's actually $850,000 is what we're looking to be able to raise through foundations and community support individuals. If we can raise that, what that means is if we bring what's called the AMI, the area median income down for what's happened with individuals. And right now, 13 of our units at the current property that we have over on Murray and Fountain is that it's 30%. It's for the lowest of low income individuals, but those were geared for veterans. This time we are not moving forward with that application for veterans specifically. And there's some reasons because of what's going on federally about that. So what we're doing is we're moving forward with the focus to be able to get that rate as low as possible. And in doing so, that's why this raise happens. If we can raise the money on the front end, it reduces our overall mortgage, which means that we can translate that into savings for the individuals and really get to that less than 50% and hopefully 40% and really get close to 30 for those folks who need that. So please take a look at the Mickey Kreschauer Legacy Fund that we are establishing. It's on our website if you're interested in donating. And if you're interested in writing a letter of support, again, Jared, if you'd be able to forward out that draft, that'd be great, or contact me directly. 3 minutes goes by very fast with somebody who talks as much as I do. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate any support that you would all be able to bring in any way, even good spirits around this. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the public comments. Thank you. Okay, into the presentations. I assume that Jared will be presenting the open records and open meeting presentation, and I look forward to this. Thank you.
That's still live. Thank you all very much. Jared Verner, Public Policy and Communications Manager here at PPACG. For some of you, this is going to be a not repetitive, but a refresher course. For some of you, I'm going to lean to our council members over here on my left. They live this every day as part of their lives, as part of their role as elected officials. But we did this a couple years ago, and we just kind of like to keep everyone abreast on what the different rules are when it comes to state statute that might apply to councils like this. So I'm going to start first with the open records component of it, and this is not something that probably impacts as much as the open meetings part, but I definitely want to make sure people are aware of what this entails. But just a refresher, you might hear it referred to as CORA. But it's the Colorado Open Records Act. If you've heard of FOIA at the federal level, that's the Freedom of Information Act. They're very similar, but there are differences. PPACG, as while we do have a quasi-governmental designation, I've always kind of said that just means that we're governmental. I really don't know where the quasi part comes when it comes to open records, but just consider us that we're governmental just like everyone else. What falls underneath CORA? It's documents, both electronic and handwritten, photos and videos, emails. If you're messaging on Microsoft Teams and sending text messages, a little bit more so for staff than it is for council members, but any work-related materials on private devices or accounts. So what that means, I'm going to use a staff comparison, is that if I'm going to use my personal Yahoo or Gmail account as an attempt to get around open records, that's not going to fly. And that has, and the reason why we know it hasn't flown just because we've seen screenshots from individuals who thought that they can get around it. So this awareness of that also applies even on personal accounts or devices. CORA does not generally include anything protected by privacy protections. So for the AAA, that's going to be primarily HIPAA. When I was in education, in the education world, FERPA was the primary privacy law. Any kind of personnel records, not that you guys really get into that. Any kind of legal guidance or privileged information or trade secrets, that would not fall underneath CORA. We had a situation recently where we did black out information that would be considered, because other people provided to us, that would have been considered business information. And that was the reason why we did it for that. Any kind of work products, drafts of documents before they are final. Now, once they get to this stage, once they get to this meeting, they're public. I mean, you guys are voting on them, you guys are discussing them. They are public. But if it's anything draft, we're going back and forth between staff, that would be something that might be considered that work product. But if in doubt, just assume that anything generated is going to be an open record. It's going to be a lot easier to consider that as the baseline versus considering what can be excluded. And it's something I like to kind of let people know and kind of put this mindset. We do not get to determine what the public deems is important to them. That's the public to determine that. Unless we have a reason to withhold it, we're obligated to release it. A little bit of overview what the process is. Anybody can request a document for any reason. They don't need to tell us why they want to request it. But a lot of times, if it's a bigger request and we're going to have to start charging for the time, I might ask some follow-up questions like, hey, what are you looking for? You're asking for this, but if you're really looking for this, let's help you. It saves my time, it saves you money. And let's kind of look at that. They're not obligated to tell me that. But if it's in that situation, we might have that follow-up conversation just to help both parties involved. Once I receive it, I have 3 working days to fulfill or deny a request or ask clarifying information or ask for an extension. The only time we're going to ask for an extension most likely is if it's one of those big data pulls. You'll see this a lot, particularly in big criminal cases. They're going to usually a coalition of news outlets will probably come together because they know there's going to be a cost involved and share those costs amongst members. That's the only time you might see that when it's really big poll like that. We're only required to provide the information requested, nothing more. And we don't need to create new records to fulfill a request. So what that means is that someone might be asking for us to produce a report that says how many people match this criteria. We're not required to do that. They can do that. We can provide the information for that, but we don't need to create a new record for that. And if we deny information or black it out, we must provide the reason why. And as I said, there's specific reasons we can do that. Like I said, we need to cite a specific statute. I always kind of like to put this in there. If it's embarrassing or can be taken out of context are not valid reasons for denying it publicly or for blacking out information. I forgot to update this, but I will work with you if there's any records that might fall underneath this. Like I said, this doesn't happen very often, but I do just want to make sure people are aware of what could happen, and kind of where the lines are. I'll ask my 2 council members, my former mayor, if there's anybody else before I get into the open meetings. Any questions on open records? Anything I forgot that you guys have run into in the past? Okay, thank you. Okay, now diving into the open meetings part. This is one where it's more pertinent to this group, just because we do it on an everyday basis. Open records and open meetings are similar. They're both within the same part of the statute, but there are some differences between them. I always kind of like to say, what's a meeting? Because a lot of people think that this is a meeting, and while that's true, that's not the only way a meeting can take place. And so from statute, quote, any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business in person, by telephone, electronically, or by any other means of communication. Email. So if you're having a group discussion on email, that is considered an open meeting. However, if you're just discussing amongst your group, hey, we need to find the time to meet, what time works best for everybody, and you're just trying to figure out when to meet, that's not considered an open meeting. So you can still have those kind of logistical conversations so that you can have the open meeting down the road. In terms of what is a meeting, how many people constitute a meeting is 3 or more, or a quorum, whichever is less. For this group, 3 is going to be the magic number. For outside of the larger counties, when they only have 3 commissioners, for them 2 is a quorum, so they have to be a little more careful. Teller and Park are the ones in our area that have that. They have to be careful on that. Staff are not part of that 3 members because we're not voting members of the council. So just kind of keep that in mind, that if you're having a meeting with one of us, we don't count towards that magic number of 3. And then for an open meeting to take place, we have to properly notice it to the public. State statute requires at least a 24-hour notice, and we have to designate where we're going to post it. For us, it is the 2 bulletin boards on either side of our main entrances. So the one that you saw coming in on Chestnut Street, as well as our 7th Street entrance, as well as our website. So those are the 3 places. We have to provide a minimum 24-hour notice, and we have to list what topics are going to be discussed in those meetings. And so a lot of times you might see if an agenda item is pulled at the meeting, that's perfectly fine. But it was noticed already the public has an expectation that that topic could be discussed. And if I'm interested in learning more about that topic, I better be at that meeting or tune in. Once we get past that 24-hour mark, so yesterday at 10 a.m., the agenda is for the most part locked. Nothing's going to get added at that point. It can get pulled, but again, that's where the agenda approval stage at the beginning of the meeting really comes into play.
Does that include subcommittees in our?
That does. And so anytime you have 3 or more, again, if you're meeting for any kind of business, 3 or more. So for example, Like we do our technical review subcommittees, we do our strategic review subcommittees, those are noticed as well. And we post on there if it's a virtual only meeting, we have the Microsoft Teams linked information. If it's an in-person and a hybrid, we list the in-person as well. But yeah, no, all of our subcommittees, again, 3 or more. And it's not just subcommittees. If it's an event where the council is being invited as members of the RAC, we'll notice those as well. So the most recent example I can think of was the senior center opening. They were invited as RAC members, and so we posted that, hey, 3 or more members of the Regional Advisory Committee may be in attendance at the grand opening of the Colorado Springs Senior Center. RAC business might come up since they were invited as members of the RAC. I don't know if 3 or more showed up, but because everyone was invited, we have to assume that that is the possibility, and so properly noticed it. But a good question. I have a few kind of scenario questions, but any other questions about just open meetings in general? Getting those, Clark.
Chair Good. Therefore, trying to think, when there's a decision, it's open meetings around the publication. Is that where the focus is, such as the subcommittee question? Does that same rules apply to that? Just curious, is that what you're?
Not sure I fully understand. Sorry.
I mean, you mentioned publication for this meeting.
Yep.
But if you have a subcommittee meeting coming up, does that meet the same 24 hour?
It does. Yes.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yep. Sorry, I was thinking of like a like if we're approving a document, I'm like, yeah, no, that would be, but now I see what you're saying for the smaller groups. Yep. Still the 24-hour notice. Understanding that things can happen fast and quickly. But at the same time, we still have to do that 24-hour notice. If things are happening quickly and there's a committee meeting that might get called at the last minute, please loop me in, just because once it's set, I still need time to actually post it. And a lot of times I'm going to be up in the state capitol a lot more this year. And so if that's the situation, I need time to be able to do it there and be able to have someone physically post it here. So like I said, please give us a little bit of grace. For these larger meetings, our goal is a week out. We don't always hit that, but we do try to provide a lot more notice than 24 hours, especially for these bigger meetings. Because there's going to be meeting materials, there's going to be stuff to review that the public can review to kind of see where the discussion might be going. Anything else before I kind of get into some scenarios? Okay. So I pulled these from the Attorney General's office because they usually do presentations like this to a lot of their state level commissions and boards. So hopefully it's all still accurate. Is this a public meeting, a rulemaking session, or a work session? I kind of combine them because they did, but they're kind of 2 different things. But the answer for both is yes. If you still have that 3 or more, if you're still discussing public business, even if you're not making a decision, even if you're just discussing something, you have that 3 or more, still a public meeting. Side conversations during meeting breaks, again, if you have that 3 or more, yes. So just be careful if you're going to go grab a cup of coffee or something like that, keep the conversation focused on what your summer vacation plans are, or what your kids are up to. Meals and social events. In general, no, but this is a huge amount of gray area. So if council business is going to be discussed, then yes. And this is kind of gets, if you're going to a social event, but you're invited as a member of the RAC, yes. Again, if you have that 3 or more. Understanding that a lot of you might have overlapping areas of interest. There might be 3 of you that just show up at a event together that maybe you weren't invited as RAC members, but hey, you're all there. If you're there, no RAC business. Again, talk about what you're up to this summer, talk about anything like that. If someone comes up to you and it's like, hey, I got 3 RAC members, I can talk about this issue that is really burning passionate for me, politely decline, or if you want to spin off, or 1 of you want to spin off, that's fine too. But as soon as you get 3 and you start talking about like, hey, we've got this upcoming vote, and I would really like for you guys to really consider this. Nope, just, but that is, and very intentionally, that was a loophole that some boards saw as an opportunity to try to get around the rules. State Supreme Court said, no, you're you're doing it with the intention to make a decision without having to publicly notice that you guys are meeting. So again, I can't meet with Jody. Jody can't meet with Melissa. And Melissa can't then tell me what they discussed. That is considered an open meeting and would be in violation of the open meetings laws. Any questions?
Not necessarily a question, more a comment. We had a very recent incident where it was a meeting that had to do with something apart from our official, but somebody from the council had to be appointed to this commission. And then who could attend in the audience? And is this a three-person rule? The answer we got was no, it's not a three-person rule. All you're doing is listening, not participating. So that's another little gray area.
And I would agree based on that logic as well. You're only listening, you're not participating. So I'm glad we got some alignment. Yay.
Could you, we don't have these, but a lot of public meetings do. What's an executive session?
So yeah, you're right. We don't have executive session at the RAC level just because there's nothing that you would discuss that would rise to that level. The ones who go into executive session, I have never been privy to an executive session. So that lucky me exactly. Yeah, it's but some of the rules for executive session, they can't make any decisions in executive session. They can discuss it, and a lot of times, if you're going to see an issue arise from executive session in the news, it's because they went to executive session, they came out, and they immediately voted without any further discussion. And a lot of times, like, wait a second, you guys already talked about what the vote was. So a lot of times, that's probably where you're going to see that pop up in the news. Like I said, there's nothing that the RAC is going to consider that will cross into an executive session territory. You also have to specify, again, similar to open records, why you're going to executive session. So it's, we're going into executive session to receive or provide, or, for legal discussion pursuant to CRS, da, 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 da. Yeah, very similar to open records. You can't just go into executive session because, oh, we don't really want to have everyone hear what we're talking about. That's not permissible. You're welcome. Any other questions? All righty. Thank you all very much. Sorry to bring it down a little bit. You guys have much more interesting presentations coming after. I know that. So,
You didn't bring us down, you brought us up.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get to the next presentation, I'd like to acknowledge Scotty Bibb joined us. Scotty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Scotty Bibb. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications over at the Independence Center. And I'm just so pleased to be part of this group and thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you for joining. Okay, our next presentation is Pikes Peak Diversity Council, being presented by Shirley Martinez.
And this is Melissa, if I can just jump in for 1 second before Shirley gets started. So today's presentations, we have two individuals talking about the impact of our African American community and leadership that happens in our region. And part of that is because February is Black History Month. So we're kind of at the tail end here, and wanted to take a moment to plant some seeds and create some thoughts and ideas for going into February. And so with that, we invited Shirley Martinez and then one of our staff members as well. So just wanted to put that foundation out for folks before Shirley got on. Thank you. And Shirley, we're ready for you if you are there. I see your name.
Shirley, you should be able to unmute. In case you haven't cleared notifications, people when they come in have their camera and microphone disabled, but you were promoted and should be able to unmute.
There we go. Hello, everybody. I know today I'm looking still a little ragged. It was a amazing weekend and Monday for MLK, but I'm the president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, as well as the president of the Martin Luther King Jr. Preservation Society. And just a short history is the All People's Breakfast in March was always, completed at Colorado College for 25 plus years. And I started working as a volunteer in 2001. And then in 2024, we had lots of changes, presidents moving. And so the Diversity Council was asked by the city and by Colorado College to take over the actual march and the breakfast. So we did, the Diversity Council, and it took us 2 years to make it its own 501c3, which the board is made up of community members and some businesses. And so really this year was the first year that we really saw the fruits of the labor of it becoming its own 501c3. And we thought, what better place to do this than where we are now, and bringing in Yolanda Renee King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s only grandchild. So that's what we did. And we made it about the King Center's mission possible, uniting a nation, building a future the nonviolent way. That was our theme. And our other theme was bringing our youth to the forefront. So this was very youth-led, whether it was the fireside chat at Colorado College, where we had multiple youth from multiple school districts, including charter schools and homeschool children, academies, colleges, which sat and talked to Yolanda about life and social justice and what was her favorite food, and just getting to know her, because she is a 17-year-old high school senior. So just like our kids, she's living in this world of it's chaos. Let's be blunt, it's chaos, and our kids wanted to have a voice. So that's kind of what we did. And then bringing her in to talk to our community on Monday morning was just amazing. To hear her just speak about it and have all the kids that were there. So part of just what the Diversity Council does is we connect, include, and engage. So that's throughout the community. And I would like to let you know that, so for this year, we're really making this about the history, about legacy, and about how we bring our youth in place. Because as we know, those of us that are aging, our youth are going to be the ones making decisions about a lot of stuff that you all talk about today. And so we came up with 3 different titles for the things we'll be doing for the rest of the year for America 250, Colorado 150. One of them is Legacies Remembered, Future Reimaged. One is Where History Lives, the Future Grows. And the other one is History Speaks, the Future Listens. So we've sent it out to our board and to some of the students that were on our panel to select that kind of title for us. And so some of the things that we're going to be doing that we feel is so important for our communities, because our communities are made up of so many different cultures and different genres, and from aging to disability, to charter schools and Girl Scouts. There's so many voices, and we needed to find a way to bring them together. So we formed a small historical group that come from different areas, from library, from city, from thy neighbor, and just groups that are going to be working on these partnerships for education, business, culture, and community. So for the arts and culture and storytelling, we'll be doing Voices of Colorado and Voices of America, which includes bilingual storytelling. We're going to be doing Echoes of a Cotton Club. So of course, our group was doing Cotton Club since 2007. We brought it back, the Fannie Mae Duncan Cotton Clubs. We'll be doing one again this year, bringing back the old, blending with the future. We're going to be doing a holiday gospel celebration. We've been doing these gospel celebrations for 5 years now. And so we're going to bring it back and we're going to blend it with other churches to kind of bring us all together for that celebration. And then we're working with Thomas Dawson, who's the manager of the Commodores, Echoes of Excellence documentary, which is a documentary around this El Paso County. And it would be really focused on Invisible No More. So pioneers of El Paso County to future of El Paso County. We're also going to be doing for Heritage History and Recognition, Veterans and Service Recognition, which we're going to be working with Homefront Military Network. Juneteenth, which we're working with a lot of the different, not libraries, but Pioneers Museum, the African American Genealogy Society, and various other groups that will be bringing that. And we're going to be doing it inside because it's about the education of Juneteenth. We're also going to be doing Black History Month. We're going to be honoring the Buffalo Soldiers because we actually have an enactment group right here in Colorado Springs that reenacts the Buffalo Soldiers. Then we're going to go to the youth and we're going to do Youth Bannered Voices. We're making it a cultural quarter. And so some of the youth that we worked with for this recent event we did, they're coming back to volunteer, which was an amazing event for kids to be able to be the person asking the questions. And then we're going to do a youth leadership summit. Something I'm really excited about is the Diversity Council used to do Everybody Welcome festivals before COVID. And we're bringing it back. And we're going to work with all the cultural groups. I don't know if any of you remember the Sister City Fuji-Yoshida event that we had, the Fire Festival 2011. We invited Sister City from Fuji-Yoshida, Japan, and we did a whole week-long celebration. Well, we're going to condense this into one day like we did then, and we're going to make this a cultural heritage Everybody Welcome Festival, and we've already reached out to a lot of the cultural groups. So we'll be doing this at Panorama Park in the summer. And then with everything that's going on, we're going to be doing a commemorative magazine of all the events and partnerships and everything that we've done. So it truly is a commemorative time frame of celebrating America 250, Colorado 150. So we're really focusing on that this year. Usually we are working, as the Diversity Forum, part of what we do is bridging connections with people, connecting and engaging with them so that we're working together. And that's what our mission is to really work together to ensure that cultural inclusion and belonging are in the forefront. Do I have any questions?
Be here. I just want to compliment you on all your initiatives. I mean, it just sounds exciting and
Yes.
can imagine how many people must be involved to carry out all these initiatives.
Yeah, yes. It's very exciting. And believe it or not, just the one event that we did for MLK, there were multiple people involved from multiple areas. And when you bring in the granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr., the only grandchild, it's I'm choking up because it's like seeing our future. And she is an amazing orator, just like her grandfather. But she has the grace and the quietness and style of her grandmother, Coretta. Very nice young lady. And she made a mark on these kids that we brought together, including the youngest one who is 9 years old, fourth grader, that's homeschooled. I mean, it was just amazing. And it does take multiple spaces and multiple things. But the thing that we do well bridging those gaps is we bring in people that want to do this and want to work with us. And we do meetings at 8:30 at night. So everybody's off work, have had dinner and all that stuff. So, and we also allow people to do the things that are in their lane. that they like to do, because sometimes you might work in HR during the day for your day job, but you really like putting, communication together. So we allow people to enjoy that part of what they do. So thank you for that. Other questions?
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a comment. I attended the event on Friday night. No, Saturday, I think.
Saturday, Sunday night,
Sunday.
the fireside chat.
Yes, and I just wanted to comment that I was really impressed with Yolanda, and when I mentioned to my son about her presentations and that she was only 17, he was amazed. It's a lot to put on the shoulders of somebody who's only 17, but she was really fabulous, and I think we'll be hearing a lot about her in the future.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yes, thank you. And I think from, when she met the other kids in the green room, she was just like a 17-year-old teenager, I will tell you. But where I found was most interesting is that she said, she did an interview and she said, my parents allowed me to be a kid. They didn't force anything on me. I knew who my family was, and I knew that at some point I would take a place. I just needed to find my place. And she said, I found my place. So I think that that was what our kids needed to hear, because I feel like they need to know we can't rush them. We have to let them get this. But we have to help by involving youth in these conversations, which she said very eloquently at the fireside chat. She said, look, I just got my license last year, but if I didn't have my license, how would I get to anything to learn? So she put it upon parents to take their kids to activities and events because they can't drive. So I thought that was very important. And I've been getting calls, like a lot of calls, because other parents and other students want to be involved in things that we're doing. But I think that opened the door for students to say, I want to do this, but I can't do this. And it's okay. So thank you for that. And it was a great event. It was very youth focused, if you noticed, from the little choir to
So Shirley, this is Melissa, and you gave a really great summary of a lot of things happening in the area. But I also wonder, before you go here, if you could also comment about the El Pomar Foundation's Cultural Heritage Room with Milton
Yes.
Proby, because I think you are doing bringing somebody else
Yeah.
into that
Yes.
that room. So anyway, would you comment on that a little bit too, please?
Yes. So every year the Elevating Leadership group meets and we discuss who will be the next person for the Milton E. Proby Cultural Heritage Room. And we're meeting on those right now. And actually all we do is provide the information, because we do sort of like the research and all of that. And then it's not the group that actually selects the individual for the cultural room. It's actually the trustees. We give them we nominate the names. The trustees are the ones that select them. But that will be coming up in August. So be looking for that, because it's an amazing opportunity to see different leaders throughout our community, not just Colorado Springs and El Paso County, but Pueblo, because we also look at leaders from Pueblo that have passed, that we honor in this cultural heritage room. So there'll be things coming out here in the future on that, and we're avidly working on it. And just so you know, the El Pomar, under the Elevating Leadership group, we have a committee of about 20 of us, and we meet. And we meet quarterly and we discuss cultural things and items that the El Pomar will be doing in the community. So, and it's made up of business leaders, individuals from all the communities, cultural communities, that meet and discuss it.
Thanks, Shirley. And I do have on the table in the back of the room here, I have information about the El Pomar Milton E. Proby Cultural Heritage Room, the MLK Legacy Organization, and the Pikes Peak Diversity Council. So for people who are in the room, know that we have some flyers back there. And then also, I was able to interview Shirley and then another one of our
JJ
iconic,
Frazier.
Black women in the community, JJ Frazier, for the Aging with Altitude podcast, and that'll be coming out in February. So thank you, Shirley, for all of your things that you do in the community. And I'm looking forward to having the podcast come out. And with that, any other questions?
Well,
And thank you for
don't
letting me throw
forget-
these up.
Don't forget that you all did an interview with the daughter, one of the daughters, with Yolanda on a podcast, so we could get that in. So kudos to you for being able to get her too to do a podcast with you.
Yes. Yep, we did that as well. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for inviting me. And PPACG is of my heart because I was originally on the groups back way back in the day when I was with Colorado Springs Utilities, working on a lot of stuff with the aging group. So thank you for continuing to do this work. I think it's so important, and it makes the aging population still be at the forefront of the minds of everybody. So thank you.
Shirley. Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Now,
Thanks for
now
sharing your
Jennifer,
passion. Sorry, I
Jennifer.
didn't raise my hand.
Shame on you.
Susie Walton, I know. I just wanted to thank her for her passion. That was really inspiring.
Thank you, Susie. Jennifer?
Yes. Hello, my name is Jennifer Horn. I am a care planner here in the Family Caregiver Support Center. I also work with Aging While Black. And so when Melissa asked, I reached out to Raymond and Callie to get their talking points to make sure it's all accurate. So Aging While Black launched in 2023, just as a conversation around aging and race. What we wanted to do was uplift Black individuals aged 50 and over, recognizing the systemic inequities that Black elders face. So Aging While Black, also referred to as AWB, is now a national movement that builds power and reimagines aging to eliminate disparities and create a future where Black elders thrive. There's 3 pillars that undergird our work. So recalibrate the village. So each day, 11,000 people turn 65. Currently, about 12% of Black Americans are 65 and older, with the number projected to double by 2040. We believe that the systems and structures that support Black life aren't prepared for that changing reality, so there must be a recalibrating or overhaul of those systems. Embrace innovation and rapid change. The world is changing quickly and technology is becoming a large part of our everyday lives. We want to ensure elders are not only competent, but also confident in their use of technology. Lastly, lean into Sankofa. Sankofa being the wisdom of our elders, must be sought and leveraged to inform our future in meaningful ways. AWB approaches its work in 2 ways, so the horizontals and verticals. Horizontally, AWB is building a national community of practice, connecting elders, advocates, and practitioners around issues like caregiving, dementia, economic security, and planning for the future. These cross-country connections let folks share what works, test new ideas, and feed learning back into everything AWB does. Vertically, AWB goes deep into specific communities, turning big ideas into on-the-ground strategies that actually change systems, culture, and day-to-day conditions for Black elders. Denver is the flagship vertical guided by community partners and local Black elders. So in May 2025, AWB Denver hosted a Black Aging Summit that produced a number of ideas to enhance the Black aging experience in our community. From those ideas emerged 3 initiatives we're piloting in Montbello community. So in the Montbello community right now, there are 3 initiatives being piloted: technology ministries, supportive spaces in local faith communities to build elders' digital confidence; third spaces, which is a wellness hub for elders to connect and gather; and then peer navigators, which is the horizontal that I'm on, is trusted community members trained to walk alongside elders and caregivers, helping with housing, healthcare, legal aid, and social services. On the table, I did make a couple of copies of their push card for what they're doing in Montbello. So Aging While Black has launched those initiatives. They're looking at Montbello area because the Mount Bella region historically has a large Black population. There's a lot of communities, a lot of the churches and faith communities are getting together, also working with the public library system as an opportunity to host those third spaces. And we also do the caregiving initiatives as well, and looping how peer navigators, literacy, the ministry technologies, and third spaces can be combined and work together. And so although they're starting in Denver piloting, the goal is to bring it all the way down the I-25 corridor. And I live in Pueblo. I work in Colorado Springs. So a lot of the time when I talk to people, I always say, don't forget about Pueblo. So my goal is always, yes, let's get it from Denver, get it to Colorado Springs, but then let's strengthen that community more and get it down to Pueblo and the rural areas. Let's see. Interestingly enough, my caregiver that I spoke with this morning, her grandfather is 97, and he is a retired professional baseball player from the Negro League, and he's in the Pioneer Museum named Justice Morgan. And I think it's interesting because we should know our community and we should know who's out there. I love how Shirley's mentioning it's about education because historically, as you know, a lot of Black people don't know our history and ancestry. It was taken from us. So learning more and getting that education and highlighting those outside of the status quo of the typical people that we see, it's always good to just be educated and know what's going on in community and who's in community. And so I think Asian While Black does a really good job with that because we're tapping into the communities, we're having conversations, we're hosting listening sessions. I'm not sure if everybody's also familiar with the Colorado Black Equity Study that's been going around the state of Colorado that Governor Polis had put into play, where they're talking with Black Coloradans about what it's like in Colorado as a Black person. They also have their oral history project. So they've been collecting oral history from people as well. Any questions? Asian While Black has been also partnered with American Society on Aging for like about 3 years now as well. And that concludes.
Help me understand, what are some of the hurdles that people who are aging while Black face that I, as someone aging while white, don't face?
So research shows a lot of it comes down to medical mistrust, feeling dismissed within spaces, and not being heard. And that really links down to the historical aspects of what systems show how they treat individuals that are aging while Black. So if we look at the current climate and what could be re-triggering and re-traumatizing for individuals, could remove them from actively seeking out services. So a lot of people refer to the speedy syphilis experiment. People are still alive. That experiment didn't end until 1974. So if you imagine someone who's in their older age, they were part of that study, would you feel comfortable going into the community of doctors and physicians asking for support? So it's what we've noticed is communities within communities. So as Aging While Black, if we can create those trusted communities, create that trusted line of connection or communication, then more older adults will start seeking out those services. So that would be the most bluntest way I could say would be the difference in between Aging While Black and Aging While Non-Black.
So medical being heard, and
oh, sorry, yeah. So medical mistrust.
I got that one.
Feeling dismissed.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then just the historical context.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? Ready.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Lots of notes over here. Next, we will hear from our membership subcommittee, Melissa/Don or Don/Melissa.
So I'll start a little bit here.
Okay.
Don is, he just was voted in today to be the membership chair. So thank you, Don, for stepping into that role. And so right now we are tracking, setting up orientations for the two newest members, Scotty and Lakita. And so Dawn and I will be doing that together. Laura, anyone else is welcome to come to those orientations when we have them. And I think that's it for membership right now. Although as a reminder, we have people who are appointed from their jurisdictions. And the goal for the coming year is to do 2 presentations to your jurisdictions, one in May because it's Older Americans Month, and then another one in October. And so the membership chairs are going to be part of that process, helping, to kind of facilitate that and get that rolling. Many of you kind of sat through the first iteration of working through this, and so we'll be doing more of it for those of you who have been appointed. So stay tuned for that. And I think that's it. I don't know, Dawn, as the new membership chair, if you want to make a few comments, but thank you for stepping in.
Hi, this is Don, and I look forward to being on this membership subcommittee. We do need more members, and we need a lot of appointees from various counties to get on this board so we can spread the information around of who we are and what we are, and just get the word out, because I'm from Falcon in the Eastern Plains area, so we need to get more information out there that way, and I'm doing my best to get it out there. And if we can get more membership from the Eastern Plains side, I think that will help. So we could try to get some of these aging resources available out there, and try to go a little bit more east instead of just centering on Colorado Springs and El Paso County. So I look forward to being on this committee and doing these briefings and get more people on board. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Sounds like you need pom-poms and a megaphone. Okay, Jen, our strategic review subcommittee chair.
Good morning. Welcome back to another fun, exciting time with Strategic Review Subcommittee. Excited to be back in the chair again. We are looking at two particular dates to have a meeting to start the year off, February 12th at 10 a.m. or February 24th at 2 p.m. I believe that Melissa has sent the email out to the RAC to figure out which time would be the most agreeable for everyone who is interested to join the subcommittee and work with us to review our strategic plan, how it aligns with the other plans within the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, and kind of do a checks and balances to see how we're progressing in the different projects and how we fund programs and services in our community. So we would love for you to join us, and please respond to that email. Let us know what time would work so that we can get something scheduled onto the calendar as soon as possible, and would love to see you there. If anybody has any questions, please reach out to Melissa or myself, and I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Yes, Jody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, just so the Regional Advisory Council is aware, just before Christmas, like literally the day before Christmas, I think it was, we received from our State Union on Aging administrators the program directive around the next 4-year plan. You've heard Melissa and I mention this in some recent meetings, and while it will go into effect July 1 of 2027, which sounds so far away, it moves fast. And so in alignment with the Strategic Review Subcommittee, which was a committee that came out of the last 4-year plan work, and several of our members were part of those efforts for the 4-year planning. Just be aware that you're going to start seeing a lot more communication, invitations to join. There is a part for the Regional Advisory Council members to play, whether it's in your own county, area, or community. And so just be aware that you're going to start seeing a lot more information. We're required to do what are called community conversations. Some of you are familiar with that language. It effectively is us going into communities, asking questions, not necessarily responding with solutions, but making us aware of challenges of aging within their communities, from small towns to very rural areas. And we're required to host 3 of those as part of our strategic planning and 4-year plan process. In the last one, we actually hosted 32, and I see B and Debbie laughing here. They were part of that. Jen was part of that. And of course, a variety of our staff here at the Area Agency on Aging were part of that. We had one member out of Teller County who went to almost every single one across all 3 counties. And so while that's not necessarily required of you, we do want to encourage you to be part of it, because that really does direct the Area Agency on Aging from everything from programs to funding to looking for future opportunities and fund growth and service growth as it relates to the Older Americans Act. So just know that that's coming. We received that directive. We're digging into that now to get the process started.
That sounds great. I'm sure Jen's happy.
You have no idea. I'm so excited.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jody. Okay, TRS, Technical Review Subcommittee. Deb and Jody, I guess. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is Jody. I'm happy to give an update, and you can see as part of my regular director's report, I have a sub point there. So the TRS did meet, and of course in December, and then brought the funding recommendations to the Regional Advisory Council in the December meeting. The vote was 5-3 to approve the recommended funding. That was then taken to the Board of Directors workshop for their most recent meeting, January, and they have asked the TRS to reconvene, because since that time, we've also received an appeal letter. So that meeting will be next Wednesday afternoon here upstairs in one of our conference rooms upstairs to review that in accordance with the Board of Directors request. So that kind of combines my E&I, but I have other items. So the Technical Review Subcommittee will meet again next week. Because this is a request of the board, it will go directly back to the board in February. And then we will have responses to share out at the February RAC meeting based on how the provides that.
Thank you, Jody.
You're welcome.
Sure. Yes.
Jody, is that meeting open to the public?
All of our meetings are, yes, and it will be posted once the package is put together.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, Jody, you're up again.
Thank you. For my director's report, I wanted to share a couple of things that have been going on, and just updates around Older Americans Act and things like that. But first, I wanted to recognize someone who will be leaving us. Her last day is tomorrow. She's here in the gallery. I'll spare her from standing, but many of you know Melody Hanna. She's been with us just a little over 5 years. Her last day is tomorrow, and I wanted to just say a public thank you for the work that she's done here with the Area Agency on Aging. She, over her tenure, has implemented various standard operating procedures, which have allowed us to track spending and data management, and provided some improvements in our assessment processes. There have been a lot of changes in the last 4 years, even in the midst of COVID, a lot of complicated changes related to the data management and program usage through the Administration for Community Living down through the state process. And so just wanted to recognize Melody as she's heading out to a new chapter, and just wish her the best and thank her for all the work that she's done in her time here. So thank you, Melody. Um, from there, just wanted to share. Last week was part of my regular quarterly meeting with other AAAs across the state. There are 16 AAAs in the state of Colorado, and we host meetings twice a month. But we also meet in person across the state on a quarterly basis. And in January, we do that in conjunction with the Colorado Commission on Aging, as well as the Colorado Center for Aging, which some of you may recognize as the former senior lobby group that tracked legislation. In that combined meeting on Thursday and Friday, we had both mornings opportunity to meet with legislators. One was an update and a joint meeting of all three groups, along with legislators and members of the public, to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing around aging services. New rulings coming out of Administration for Community Living, the challenges with funding, both at the federal level and the state level, and as you all are, I'm sure, very familiar with, since it's part of the headlines just about every day, the state of Colorado finds itself in a major budget crisis yet again. And so we still have the mandate to provide these services, but at the end of the day, the challenge continues to be the funding is just not keeping up with the need. One of the presentations came from Christine Burrows, who you all heard, and you all participated in the multi-sector plan on aging. And thank you very much. I come to find out that we were one of the few AAAs that actually put something like that together. And so I just want to thank you for participating in that process. It was a public process. And so we really appreciate your engagement with us on that. But she presented. They're 1 year into this multi-sector plan on aging, which is a 10-year plan around aging programs, funding, looking for resources outside of our traditional federal and state funded program budget lines and that kind of thing. And so just a lot of great conversation. We had one member on who's actually with our Pikes Peak Commission on Aging, Penny Whitney. You may remember has done presentations with us before, and just feeling very challenged and overwhelmed. And she summed it up. It is a concerning place that we find ourselves in, that despite having this mandate at both the federal and the state level, the funding is just not keeping up. So a lot of very difficult process right now. But where we find our hope and our assurance that we can do this is that we like to joke that a AAA director can squeeze $1 out of a dime. We make it happen. We figure out how to make it work. We look to our community partners, whether they're contracted with us or not. We make sure that we understand the available services within a community and make sure that our seniors and those senior family members can access those services. So that's what goes on in our building within the AAA day in and day out, is making sure that folks know what those services are, where they can access them, and even sometimes a soft handoff is made to ensure that that individual is receiving or getting access to those services. So that was a big part of that Thursday morning portion. Friday morning was, again, there were members of the C4A, again, Colorado Association of Area Agencies on Aging, the Colorado Commission on Aging, the legislative group, Colorado Center for Aging. But on that one, we had a lot of probably a dozen legislators who made time that morning to come and spend it with us before they went to the State House to start their legislative schedule. And so they got to hear about some of the challenges. There was a speaker from the Denver Regional Council of Governments, AAA, who shared data around their challenges, and also a little bit another highlight from that multi-sector plan on aging. So it was a really great opportunity to make sure that we got to see our legislators and they recognize the continued and ongoing need that we have as a way to serve our communities. In fact, I will share too that Jared will be traveling in March in my stead to Washington, D.C. to take part in the annual U.S. Aging Policy Briefing. And there is time set aside amongst the Colorado delegation. There'll be at least two AAA directors attending as well from the state of Colorado, and they will make those hill visits to our federal legislators. And so I got to do that last year. It was a day and a half of meeting with legislative staff and highlighting the needs. But Jared is going to be going in my place this coming March. So really excited for him to be able to participate in that and representing the area agency on aging programs for us from our area. A couple of years ago, you may recall we talked a little bit about the Older Americans Act review of rules and rule changes. There was a lot of discussion how the rules had not changed since 1988, and those rule changes have now begun to be implemented. And what that means at the state level is that because that is a change in the mandate at the federal level that requires a change in the Older Coloradans Act, that is a legislative process. It's not something that we or the State Unit on Aging can just say, okay, we're going to interpret the federal rule and we're going to implement these changes. So the State Unit on Aging will be guiding that process. They have received permission to take that before the legislators to have that effectively. They have to run a bill to make those changes at the state level. That will happen across this legislative session as well as the 2027 legislative session. All of those rules have to be completed and in place by July 1 of 2027. Again, it's not a quick and easy process. It's quite involved. But do know that we will be working with our providers as well as our internal programs as those rules are updated to make sure that we are putting those into place and also working with our providers as those take place as well. So more to come on that. We will be doing that through the Aging Policy and Advisory Committee at the state level that AAA directors participate in every other month. And I sit as the chair of that as the vice chair of the C4A State Association. Madam Chair, I think that's enough for me today.
No, I think we need to hear more. Thank you very much. That's a lot. Okay, and back to Jared with our favorite topic this time of year, legislative update.
I agree. It is the most favorite. It is the most romantic time of year. So I'm going to start with the federal side first because that's going to be shorter, and then we can give us more time for state after that. But on the federal side, right now, as we speak, they're doing a House debate on a three-part minibus appropriations bill. One of those three parts is the labor, HHS, and education bill, which we are very interested in. We're not expecting any concern. We're expecting it to pass. That would at least allow if government funding does lapse on any of the remaining appropriations bills next Friday, our part would stay open. So we wouldn't have to worry about any potential partial shutdown. As we learned during the last one, we're able to really kind of get through a government shutdown without any major impacts. But having this bill across the finish line will actually get us through this fiscal year. So we're excited for that. That's packaged along with THUD, Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, which the folks upstairs are also going to be looking at. But as HR 7148, like I said, that's on the House floor right now. Happy to answer any questions on the federal side. No, not a whole lot.
I'll also add for the RAC members, the Older Americans Act is still in the reauthorization process. You may recall that it did pass the Senate at the end of 2024, but lost traction during 2025. That has been re-enlivened, and in fact, Colorado Senator Bennett has added his name as a co-sponsor to that. And so you may recall the crucial things to recall around the Older Americans Act. While it is our mandate, it also provides the funding structure for the programs that we provide and the directives and how we provide those. During the current continuing resolution process that we have seen over this last year, that has allowed the program to be flat funded. With the reauthorization, it does allow for the opening of the conversation of changing the funding, which of course we would like to see increase to keep up with the need and the demand across the nation. But just to let you know that Senator Bennett has added his name as a co-sponsor. We're very excited about that, to have Colorado represented in that way. And just want to make sure you're up to date on that. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jody. Any
Alright.
questions for Jared?
I've got state still, but
Oh, okay.
federal. Okay. Okay, state. So today is day 9 of 120 of the Colorado General Assembly. So far, 109 bills, resolutions, and memorials have been introduced. I've made my way through about half of them so far. Right now, the legislature really doesn't get ramped up until the first week of February. They're still in their SMART Act hearings. There's a lot of presentations from state departments in terms of what they're planning to do for the upcoming year. Keeping in mind that, as Jody mentioned, they've got to figure out a way to come up with about $1 billion to balance the budget. There's a lot of ideas on how to do that from various members of both parties. So I think we're kind of going to be along for the ride, and kind of see what happens there. Of the bills that have introduced that I've reviewed so far, I would say fairly surface level. There are a couple that were probably won't impact aging as much, but especially on the local control issue that we are eagerly waiting / dreading based on what we've heard in the bill text so far, of what could be in them. But until those are dropped, we're going to be just waiting on pins and needles. So not a whole lot to update on the state side, other than we got to figure out, not we, they will have to figure out $1 billion to come up with. I do not envy the Joint Budget Committee. They've got an incredibly tough task in front of them, and just how to address it. The reality being that they look through the couch cushions. They've emptied out the change drawer and jar last year, but I think there's going to be cuts where those cuts are. I think will be up for debate, knowing that a lot of members of both houses are running for other offices for 2026. So happy to answer any questions. I saw a couple. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. So is the state debt, some of the state deficit due because of pullback from the federal government on monies, or is it only on state revenues?
I'm diplomatic in how I say this. You're more welcome to, Mr. Yeah.
It depends on who you ask. If you ask liberals, they will say it's because of the big, beautiful bill that was passed by the president. If you ask conservatives, they will say it is because the liberals have overspent in the last years and it's their fault. So it all depends on who you ask. Is that a fair summation?
That was how I was going to kind of say it. There's 100 members of the General Assembly, and I think you're going to get 100 different answers if you ask that up there. Maybe 110. Yeah, no, it's a tough situation. some of the discussion, like I said, I'll list off all the reasons. You can assign whichever reason you want. In addition to the two that Mayor Pro Tem Rick already mentioned, there's been a lot of growth in the state, particularly along employment and FTEs. That has come up several times from members of the Joint Budget Committee, as well as Smart Act hearings where several members have asked very pointedly what the FTE were, what each department's FTE numbers were in 2019 to now. There is also a lot of state ballot initiatives kind of in the play regarding essentially saying certain funds have to be spent in certain ways, which then impacts what can be spent in the general fund. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things, some people say, well, instead of using COVID relief dollars for more capital one-time expenses, that the state put them into ongoing programs and they have to fund those programs. That's another reason why. That's 4 or 5. Like I said, they still got 95 more to go. There's a lot of places I think that are probably going to be sweating it more than us. We do have, from the State Fund for Senior Services, we can have the through line. We did have an increase with COVID relief dollars. Those have since come back down. But if you go back to last 10 plus years, the funding for the State Fund for Senior Services is flat. And so we think we have a compelling argument to make that while the state has grown in other areas, it clearly is not from the State Fund for Senior Services. And so that's kind of the argument. I will say, not just State Fund for Senior Services, but a senior homestead tax exemption. That is something that we're keeping a close eye on. That is also not something that the Joint Budget Committee is interested in pulling back on. Keeping in mind that's about a $200 to $250 million line item. And so while they may not want to do that, and they have told us several times they don't want to, keeping in mind that would get you a quarter of the way to addressing a budget shortfall.
And I would suggest that all of those reasons are compounded and just makes it even worse. You can't just pick one. You can't pull one thing back and solve it all. It's a conundrum for sure.
And I think we can objectively say, because I'm hearing this from both parties, there is a structural issue with the Colorado budget. They have, ever since COVID relief dollars, that we've been having the same $1 billion shortfall ever since. And so it's a structural thing. I don't know if they can, I'd say, cobble together the couch cushions change drawer this year like they have in the past years, without really addressing some structural changes at the state budget level. And I will say, from not just the aging side, but the local government side, there's a lot of concern about a lot of unfunded mandates. There's a lot of concern about programs that the state used to provide and now backing off, and it'll be up to locals to fill those if they want to continue those or be required to. But at the same time, you do that, local governments are in a similar situation. It's not looking great really at any level of state or local government in terms of budget. So if the state decides that they're going to put it on locals, it just moves it from state and local. And you've already seen this past budget session, a lot of local governments make some very, very tough decisions already. So it's a tough scenario out there. I think counties are a little bit better because they're more reliant on property taxes than cities and towns and more reliant on sales. But yeah, no, it's just kind of overall, it's a tough year. And on top of that, you also have a lot of people running for election, so you're going to see a lot of messaging bills come out too. Trying to think if there's something positive. I feel like I just drilled it down.
Keep going. Come on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something. Yeah.
Any questions or comments? I say thank you. I don't know how you do it, frankly. That's tough. It's a tough job.
No, thank you. And we overheard kind of a conversation You know, we outlined our needs last week from the aging, or agency on aging, and a member, I'm not going to say who, said this. I gathered, while she didn't say it specifically, that this was not the first such presentation that she's heard. Every organization, every department is fighting to protect what they already have, and hoping that it doesn't go down. So it's, well, a lot of people are going to be really pushing for their priorities. And like I said, you got 100 members of the General Assembly who are going to have to make that decision.
Melissa?
Jared, thank you for all you keep us apprised of. And I just wanted to circle back to Jody, because when you just talked about all the entities advocating for their priorities and things that they need. Jody, last Friday, when the legislators were up at the kind of breakfast meeting, was CCOA and CCA still at that meeting on Friday morning, or was it just the AAA directors?
Thank you for that question. Yes, they were all three represented during that second meeting.
And Madam Chair, I see Susie has a hand raised. Just
Oh, Susie, please.
Thank you very much. You know, there's no doubt that we're in a period of rollback of funding. You know, however you ascribe blame to that, we're in that period, right? I want everyone to understand here that Senior Coalition in Park County was told that we were going to get a 57% cut in our services, which will devastate our local agency. And I don't know if we're not showing the numbers. I don't understand this, but I think we really have to come together and figure this out. Clearly, our board has gotten the message that we can't rely on government funding to the degree that we had been. But I'm just worried about like this agency's scope of, advisory capacity, right? If we're looking to serve our seniors equitably across the counties in our catchment area, I think we really have to look at a 57% decrease in funding, kind of that sort of a swing, as being unsustainable in our area. And I hear that funding is flat, but it's not flat for us, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that.
Susie, this is Gordon Rick. I would encourage you to get with Jody. There is an appeal procedure. I don't want to get into that right now, but there is an appeal procedure for funding cuts, and I would encourage you to take a look at it.
Thank you, Gordon. Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. And even though we're talking about hopefully keeping flat, that is effectively keeping flat to today's funding, which was a drop from the previous year. So we're unfortunately, with the Old Americans Act and the Old Coloradans Act, we do continue to anticipate the funding from those two sources continuing that decline in funding. Some of the conversations that have been had at state, and a lot of conversation at state level, and sometimes also at the federal level, is looking for other funding sources, and that is something that we do recommend to all of our contractors. The federal and state funding is just it's just not keeping up with the demand. It's not keeping up with the need of our communities, and looking for those opportunities to reach out and find other funding sources to complement Older Americans Act and Older Coloradans Act. Because you're right now it's very, very difficult to entirely depend on this singular funding source.
Madam Chair, this is Don. God bless you.
Just done.
I don't know if I can say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Is there a possibility, there are several philanthropists out there. Can these agencies reach out to them for support, for funding? Because most of these philanthropists are up in age, and I think they understand how aging is affecting everyone. And I'm hoping that there is a way to do that. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. So, about that, Jody.
Yeah, thank you, Don. I would say there's nothing off the table right now. If someone knows someone, make a phone call, express the need, see what that could look like. A lot of foundations are, of course, being reached out to from a variety of providers and services, even outside of the Area Agency on Aging's across the state. It is definitely challenging across the board, but yeah, if someone knows someone or receives funding opportunities, they should really take a look at that. One of the challenges, like Jared talked about, is when organizations or the state use those ARPA funds and CARES Act dollars during the time of COVID to enact new programs. That funding came to an end. And I would say that that is something that we were very, very careful about here within PPACG and the Area Agency on Aging, was to really consider the original intention of the funds and what that could look like long term. It was exciting to see the level of funding that we received. We were able to distribute that across our contracted providers with the understanding that these funds are going away. You have to have a plan beyond that allocation if you were going to use those for new programming. And so we were very, very careful about that. And I think for us overall, it allowed us to invest in some infrastructure across the 3 counties, but also recognizing that the individuals receiving those funds would have to continue supporting those, because infrastructure funds are not a key element of Older Americans Act dollars or Older Coloradans Act dollars. Those 2 fund sources that we administer here across the 3 counties are intended for programs. We can shave off a little bit. We're allowed to shave off a little bit for capital and infrastructure, but that's where we were able to really use those ARPA funds and those COVID dollars. But back to your original question, providers can certainly look to other sources. In fact, we encourage it greatly, whether that's a foundation, an individual philanthropist, or other sources of funding to engage to allow them to maintain their program and serve the need.
Can I just add a little bit? I think that it's also important when our providers are doing that to kind of think about the role that they play providing services in the region as part of kind of a group of providers. It's like there's, through the Area Agency on Aging, we have a collaborative of groups that are all working really closely together. And the better they can tell the story of how they're filling gaps as part of this bigger picture, I think they are able to tell a story to the funders that helps to support their efforts and the work that they're doing. And so as the strategic review subcommittee meets and identifies priority areas, our providers can take those priority areas and kind of highlight that in their grants, that, the Area Agency on Aging and the 4-year plan, really, puts more, needed efforts into these particular areas. And so the more we can be communicating that to our providers to be using that information in their asks and their grant their grant applications, I think the better. So we can continue to do a good job on that side as the RAC and the Area Agency on Aging. For the rural areas, I know they tap into, rural philanthropy days. There are, specific funders who really want to see things happen in rural areas. And so they participate in that. But it's still just super hard, and, we heard Jason today talk about, they're, setting up a whole new, kind of funding stream possibility to help pay for the housing. Housing is a huge priority for the state of Colorado and our area. And, one of the ways Silver Keys is handling that is by setting up a special fund. Teller Senior Coalition does a lot of various, kind of activities around that too. And so the more our partners kind of tap into, growing and creating, kind of some, specific asks, the better that they're going to be down the road. So thank you, Dawn, for caring about our partner organizations and thinking about ways that they might be able to tap into additional monies. Sure. Thank you. That it? Nope.
That's it. Yep. Just
You
confirm.
sure?
For this purposes of right now, yes.
You're just trying to dodge your chair.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all that's going on there, trying to drag this out.
Thanks a lot, Jared. For the chair report, I'm going to defer to our prior chair because I think you have, do you not have some things to?
I don't have anything specific, but I know that
Okay.
Lisa has a ton of things out there that people can take home with them. I don't know, maybe you can comment on.
So I did mention the resources that Shirley talked about. Jennifer left the Aging While Black handout over there. The other things that are on the table, a reminder for the community that we have the senior law book is out. We have copies of it at our offices and they can be found in some other areas around the city. And I don't know how readily available they are up in the rural areas. So possibly if Jody and I are headed up there in the near future, we can bring a few with us if they're not already there. Two of the other handouts that are over there, one is a questionnaire about what is your aging in place IQ. And so it's kind of a fun survey to kind of go through, as B has commented in years past about how ready her home is to age in place, and the conversation she has with her friends. And then also Colorado Senior Games are going to be back in our community again. And there's a handful of us working really, really closely with the leadership over at the Colorado Springs Sports Corps to do some kind of additional activities leading up to the Senior Games this year in June. And so there's a little save the date handout over there for people who are super interested in what might be happening with the Colorado Senior Games. Is the senior law book available to distribute? Yes, it is. Yep. Okay. Yep. And you can take a handful with you today if you want. Perfect. You could, you can take them up to Monument. Yeah, so we can get some for you. Wonderful. Thank you. Other than that, I have nothing else. So we'll move on to any action items that we may have had that somehow missed.
No, Madam Chair, no action items for today.
Great. Any discussion items? Hearing none, we'll move right along. The meeting schedule is there for everyone to make sure their calendars are up to date, and I call this meeting adjourned at 11:41.